Alright, welcome back everyone. This is one of the most exciting videos that I've got to do in ages, because whenever I spoke to Steve Denuser and Morgan Day, serious lore happened. Big hints, future plot threads, and returning characters. Ner'zhul! Yeah, him. He's going to be coming back. This is going to be a real blast if you like the lore like I do. First, two things on the Patreon front though. There's only a few days left for February's loot, and man, it is real nice. You'll get this shield pin that complements the January sword pin perfectly, plus a whole bunch more. And also, content. I've just put up some studio behind the scenes of how we did our 7 hours of live streams and put it together at the last minute for Blizzcon. And tomorrow, you're actually going to see another behind the scenes video of the prototype of my custom iPad arm that is great for work, Discord, and a whole bunch more, including distracting me when I'm raiding. Sorry, raid leader. And also it's got magnets. Pretty cool. So that's what's going on there. Patrons, thank you for everything. And with that said, let's get into the lore. The Jailer is responsible for everything we're going to talk about today, almost everything, so he really is where we've got to begin. Steve told me that the Jailer was imprisoned using domination magic, and the way that he put that really made it seem like domination magic is just a type of magic, right? And it's one that is wielded by the Pantheon of Death, because it was they who imprisoned the Jailer. And of course, since the first ones maybe created them, maybe had something to do with them, it might even come from them. Now, this domination magic is serious business, and one of its most powerful practitioners is, as an example, the Primus, who was a master rune carver, and of course, he had a role in the Jailer's imprisonment eons ago. So, while we, as players, see the domination magic as a thing in Frostmourne and the Helm of Domination, and we see that as an evil thing, really, it's just another form of magic. One that, in fact, our current Covenant leader allies used to imprison the Jailer. Now, the Jailer eventually learned to use the magic that imprisoned him, both within his own realm of the Maw, and also as a means to exert his will outside of the Maw, his prison. Now, according to Steve, Zovaal, and Zovaal is the Jailer's name, I'm going to refer to him by his actual name from now on in this video, Zovaal has been refining this process of using the dominating magic. Now, the first instance that we know of is Ner'zhul, and then, of course, we've got Arthas Menethil, and then, very notably recently, Anduin Wrynn. But, right, were Ner'zhul and Arthas mind-controlled like Anduin was? And is it even mind control? Well, good news is, I asked, and I got a great response. The Lich King entity was designed to essentially exert Zovaal's will on Azeroth, to sort of give him a man in the inside, or in his case, the outside, because he's stuck in the Maw. Now, the first host, Ner'zhul, of course, gained a bunch of power. Now, he was immortal, and he did have a degree of free will, even though he was, of course, imbued in the armor of domination, with the helm and all of that. Now, this should have worked out well for Zovaal, but it actually didn't, because Ner'zhul began to have his own ideas, his own ambitions. And so it was eventually time for a new Lich King, and that would be Arthas. Yet, even with Arthas the Death Knight and Arthas the Lich King, free will is something that actually did creep in, and it is insinuated in a few spots of the lore, as we've covered before, that it was kind of the last shreds of good, the last slivers of Arthas, that they were able to sometimes overcome that dominating power of the Helm, and that is a part of why the Scourge didn't just wipe us out, didn't just run rampant across the whole world. There was that little tiny sliver of Arthas left, and ultimately, we know that the Lich King project failed with the defeat of the Arthas Lich King. And that is especially the case when Bolvar, a man who was fundamentally altered by Alexstras's life magic, took control. And it was very much not the case that Zovaal could easily dominate him. Now, what Steve said is that each time Zovaal's techniques became more and more refined, although we know that eventually Bolvar kind of put a stop to that. Now, this Steve explains, is why Anduin's current situation is rather different to the likes of Ner'zhul and Arthas. Was Arthas mind-controlled like Anduin? Were Arthas's actions as a Death Knight even his own? Well, the answer to that question is, yeah, they actually were his own, and no, he was not fully mind-controlled like Anduin Wrynn. And I was very thankful that Steve clarified this situation. He doubled down on the fact that yes, Arthas is an individual who did make his own choices, and those choices are his. Now yes, a dark power was subtly influencing him, and that is part of the domination magic that was woven into Frostmourne. That did have an influence on Arthas the Death Knight, but in large part, his choices were actually his own. Now, I do think that his culpability in what he did is somewhat reduced, because he was Frostmourne's first victim. But yes, you have heard it here confirmed. Death Knight Arthas was under the mild influence of dominating magic and was a major part of Zovaal the Jailer's plans, but Arthas was largely in control of his actions. Now that, of course, is Arthas the Death Knight in Warcraft 3, the Frozen Throne. Things, of course, may be different for Arthas the Lich King. And personally, my read here is that if Arthas was maybe a pachinko ball, Zovaal was mostly just nudging the direction that he went, in the way that, of course, Zovaal wanted. With Anduin, things are different. Anduin is facing the full might of Zovaal's dominating magic. Now, Steve explained to me that Zovaal was not pleased at how the mortal willpower of the likes of Ner'zhul and Arthas ended up getting the way of his plans. And that's why he chose to unleash the most refined, the most dominating version of his dominating magic upon Anduin. Now, Sylvanas actually appealed to Zovaal, we've learnt, saying that Anduin would be a better tool for their cause if he was a true believer and actually joined them upon his own free will, I guess like Sylvanas herself did. But with that failing, well, he became the victim of the most refined, no-holds-barred version of domination magic that we've seen. So is this domination magic mind control? I actually don't think so, because the way that Steve explained it to me was as suppression, that Anduin was able to break free from that for just a moment, but then he was very quickly suppressed, and that Zovaal regained control. And I think this likely means that Anduin is still there in his head, witnessing what his body is doing, witnessing the words that are coming out of his mouth, but that he is in fact stuck in his mind, powerless, and forced to watch in horror at what is going on. So, Arthas and Anduin, they have their parallels here, and they also have their differences. What then of the other and first Lich King, Ner'zhul? Yeah, I got the scoop. And it was very exciting to get the scoop. And the scoop is that Ner'zhul is returning to World of Warcraft, and he is returning relatively soon. And that is fun because Ner'zhul is a pretty awesome character. Steve told me that we are going to see him return, and honestly, I feel really bad for Ner'zhul. He's got a bad situation. Because according to Steve, Ner'zhul deviated from Zovaal's plan, right? And now, whatever's left of Ner'zhul after the, I guess, a long time of just horrors and abuse being inflicted upon his soul, whatever's left of him is currently receiving the Jailer's ire. And this is a story that we are going to see as more of the Shadowlands expansion unfolds. So yes, we are going to see Ner'zhul's fate. We're actually going to get some closure there. Perhaps we may even learn what Ner'zhul's plans were. And it's not just him, because Morgan Day also said that the Sanctum of Domination is the place where Zovaal would trap those who he dislikes. And that means that this raid is an opportunity to explore questions like the ones that I had for Ner'zhul. So, who knows what other notable characters we'll find there? Perhaps even Saurfang, because he certainly was a spanner in the Jailer's works. Now as for Ner'zhul, the guy has been through it all. Chronicle even tells us how the Arthas Lich King essentially spent a while just trying to obliterate and damage and destroy the mind of Ner'zhul until he was, just a tiny little echo in the back of the helm. And then, of course, in Legion, we actually see the echo of Ner'zhul, and that echo of Ner'zhul is well pissed off that apparently we've disrupted his plans. Of course, those are plans that we're not aware of, but as has been teased here by Steve, yeah, we might actually learn what those plans were. So Val very much can't have taken kindly to any of this stuff, and I think that means that we can expect to see an extremely tortured Ner'zhul. Funnily enough, though, the Blizzard guys were not done teasing with me yet. So, to cut a whole bunch short, Garrosh is back. Garrosh is going to be back. But thankfully, he's going to be back in a way that does actually respect his story and the fact that in large part he did go through his arc. So I think that is a very good thing. But what we are going to see is a payoff for his Afterlives cameo. But yes, they did say that the team are satisfied with the journey that Garrosh went on through the expansions. So I think it's the sort of thing where we'll see some fitting events for where he is, but I don't think we're going to see him return in any way as a major sort of pushing the lore forward character. And I think that is ideal. And to be honest with you, I think he died pretty quickly. And I would have liked to have seen a bit more time and a bit more of his perspective. There's the viral video that went out called Garrosh Did Nothing Wrong. There's a lot of valid points there, and I actually think this could give Blizzard just a little bit more time, and it'll allow us to see a little bit more of Garrosh's own perspectives. And Morgan did actually follow up on what Steve said by mentioning that one of the cool things about Revendreth is, it's redemptive, and ideally, souls, they move on from Revendreth to other realms of the Shadowlands. So who knows? Maybe Garrosh will be able to, in the future, repent and finally find his place. Of course, all places do fall within the universe. And I've got good news. I've learned more about the universe. So, as we know, Shadowlands is Blizzard's first step into exploring that cosmology chart that we first saw in Warcraft Chronicle. Shadowlands is our springboard, and according to Steve, they are laying down the groundwork of stories that will pay off years and years into the future. And from the interview, I think I've got two key learnings from you. First up, some future hype. The Grimoire of the Shadowlands book, which I believe is written by Steve Denuser and Sean Copeland, that is actually from the perspective of a broker. Now that's hype because the brokers are really cool. We're seeing them in the new Mega Dungeon. And Steve revealed that one of the chapters of this book is actually going to show us a different point of view on the cosmology of the universe. So, for so long we've been looking at that cosmology chart. And in fact, last summer when I interviewed him, Ian Hazakostas told me that it was more the time to zoom out on that cosmology chart. And we know that that chart is from the Titan perspective, the perspective of the beings of order. So to them, they've made sense of it all. But who knows what we're going to see in this new book that offers us new views, new perspectives. And I think based on what Steve said, this book could be Chronicle levels of lore hype. So yes, I'm extremely excited. The next learning then, the first ones. I actually got a little bit more. Steve confirmed that they are a progenitor. Essentially, the Titans, light, void, etc. Those things are, the way that he put it, the next layer down from the first ones. And it is the first ones who set up the structure of the cosmos. So, the first ones, surprisingly, came first. It seems they set everything up, and then the likes of the Titans actually came to be. Now, what this means is there are more things going on in the universe than Chronicle suggests, and it means that the view of the universe that is shown in Chronicle, the one that very much seems like a very, very hard magic system where everything has got a logical place, well, it seems that that's because, that was the Titans' perspective, and they actually weren't there from the beginning. So I'm excited to learn more. Next then, Velen, Yrel, and morals. Well, suffice to say, I'm very glad I asked about Yrel. Steve said that, yes, there is clearly more story to tell with the Yrel stuff that they did with the Mag'har Orc introduction scenario, and the TLDR there is basically Light dogmatism turned Yrel, who we previously thought was a very good, morally upstanding character, into somebody who seems to have done extremely morally reprehensible things. And Steve then went on, from this point about Yrel, to say that Legion let them explore a lot of the morality of the light. And a fun tidbit that he dropped on me is that Velen, Prophet Velen, was previously an individual who was completely blindly devoted to the light. But according to Steve, Valen's perspective has actually changed since Legion. And I think that is really, really cool. And if you've been paying attention to the same parts of the lore that I've been, you know, there is a light-related conflict that is being set up. And it's not only being set up with Yrel, it's also being set up within the Alliance. There are people in the Alliance who, I think Matthias Shaw, who don't believe that Turalyon is the guy who should basically be leading the show in Anduin's absence. And Turalyon, I mean, what Zira did in Legion was obviously a terrible, horrible thing that completely ran over Illidan's free will and his own wishes. Yet, what did Turalyon do? He completely backed up Zira. So, Turalyon is a bit of an extremist. And Velen may have been in the past, but Steve just dropped the knowledge bomb that Velen is now maybe a bit more questioning of aspects of the light. And that means that, well, it'll be pretty interesting to see Turalyon and Velen actually play off each other. And I think the fact that Steve actually mentioned Velen, I think that means that, like, the lore team at Blizzard are thinking about Velen, and I'd love to see more Velen come back to the story. Now, as for Yrel, yeah, it's pretty damn clear that she's going to have a role to play in this upcoming light conflict, and all I can say is that after this conversation with Morgan and Steve, am more sure than ever that we're going to get a big light expansion tackling these topics, and I think that's just great. And I think for that, it's vital that you understand what Steve relayed to me as well. And that is that we mortals in the Warcraft universe ascribe morality to the cosmic forces, right? We think, void bad, light good, titans good, etc. But that the forces themselves are just doing their thing. Titans are beings of order, so they go about the place imposing order. And if you're okay with their brand of order, then they are going to be benevolent beings towards you, like the Titans have been to us. Morgan then said, perhaps we'll learn what happens if you don't agree with their agenda. And while I can't say for sure, I have a little suspicion that he maybe was talking about the Titans there. We posted the interview on the channel, so you can double check yourself, but that was my read of it anyway. So, who knows? The Titan Pantheon are off with Illidan, and they could easily be brought back into the story. And that leads me into the most out there thing, the thing that I asked to get a reaction, and unfortunately because of, some... Actually, no, I think we might actually have Steve's face, but let's just say, whenever I ask Steve, what is Azeroth the Titan of? Whatever. He had a bit of a reaction. You read into that the way that you want. That's actually why I enjoyed chatting with Steve so much and just like jamming out on the lore. So maybe the identity of Azeroth is a very important thing for the future of the lore, and maybe that will be a major plot point in the future. I certainly will say that I would bet on it. So there you have it. Ner'zhul, Garrosh, Yrel, potentially other characters, and a lot of context and understanding. I think the Grimoire of the Shadowlands is going to be an insta-buy for me, that's for sure. Now, as awesome as all this stuff is, this is not where today's video ends, because BlizzCon did actually have a few more lore reveals beyond what we've already covered on the channel. So first up, there's the big one, Sire Denathrius. Apparently, like with the character of Bomsamdi, Blizzard just enjoyed the actor's performance so much that they decided to keep him around and make him a bit more important. And with Bomsamdi, that was the right choice. He was great. And Denathrius, I think, is a pretty cool dude. I would like to see more of him. And right now he is imprisoned. But in the Q&A, Steve mentioned that he does, that he will have allies, and that maybe those allies could break him out. Well, if Zovaal is done with him, then Zovaal's not Denathrius' ally. Who is his ally? It's Lothraxion. That's my view. Okay? Lothraxion, the Light Dreadlord from Legion. And remember, in the Dreadlord missive that we found in Revendreth, it is very, very insinuated that Lothraxion is in fact a double agent, and that basically all the Dreadlords have been double agents. Now, who better than a light Dreadlord, double agent, to walk up to the Naru who is currently imprisoning Denathrius and dupe that Naru and get Denathrius back? And I then have to wonder, could this establish the Dreadlords as just an ongoing group of characters, like beyond the Legion expansion? And if that's true, awesome, because they know a lot about the state of the cosmos, and it's such a pity that Illidan and co. basically completely destroyed their planet, because canonically it had incredible libraries of vast knowledges that really, just vast knowledge that we kind of couldn't comprehend right now, because they're such an ancient civilization that knew so much. So they're such a fun bunch to have around the Dreadlords. I mean, it was even Dreadlords who led to Sargeras turning on the other Titans and becoming the Lord of the Burning Legion. Dreadlords are serious business, and if Denathrius can basically appear in the game in the future as the leader of the Dreadlords, that would be really cool. I'll do the rest quick fire then. So, Thrall and Draka are going to reunite. That's a thing that's going to happen. Very good. I think the more character moments like that, the better, because it's just nice to see our characters be fleshed out. Then next, the Archon. She actually did survive. That was, maybe I just missed it, but basically, like, her hand moves after Anduin's blow, so yeah, she's back. And then finally, Bolvar is going to be at the forefront of the Chains of Domination patch story. And I think that's really good, because, well, I would imagine that with his 9.0 fears put to rest, he'll be more able to lead from the front, and that is what I want to see happen for Bolvar, because I think he's a great character. And the core reason why I enjoyed Khadgar so much more than Magni is I did stuff with Khadgar. We quested with him, we spent time with him, he accidentally almost killed us a few times, we had our moments, we had our banter. Whereas Magni was just a bit more chilling out, telling us what to do. That bit where we gave Magni his hammer, I don't really feel like he did much with it. Bolvar's got a pretty damn big hammer, and I believe it was Steve who said that we're going to see him use the hammer, so I'm totally down for that. And that's us. What awesome lore revelations. Of course, this is the lore and the world building. Will the in-game storytelling do a great job at communicating all of this stuff that I'm super excited about? Not 100% sure, but with the Covenant campaigns and stuff being a little bit more simple and linear, I think they'll have a better chance at actually having all of the players be properly up to date and being able to follow the storyline, which should help. So that's that. Of course, a few things. Number one, a channel for you to see. We have a clips channel because we're going to be doing live streams, and this is not just stream highlights. No, it's going to be mini YouTube videos, discussions about lore. I mean, if a bunch of podcasts that you listen to have probably got clips channels that give you a lot of value, so we're going to be doing that, and it will be linked down below. And then also Patreon. It really is the way that helps us out a lot. And to be honest with you, I know it's something that you see us engage in from time to time, and a part of the reason why is this is YouTube, and unfortunately, if you don't do this stuff, other people will, and you will just be completely crushed by the algorithm. And when you're in a situation where you've got a bunch of people who are working, you have to do those things to protect their jobs, right? And the thing I've been talking about is, big titles, big thumbnails. And over time, I want to move away from that, and I want to be able to just do evergreen content that really excites me. There's a lot in the lore that is not, cutting-edge speculation stuff, but that I think will be really enjoyable to engage in for all of us. And Patreon is really the thing that's going to allow us to do that, because it can divorce the job security of everybody who is here, and the compensation and all of that. It can divorce that from the less good parts of operating on YouTube as a platform. When I talk to the guys, I know they are massively appreciative of all that you do and all of the support. And we really appreciate it, and we really are trying to work on that more long-form, evergreen content. And you'll be seeing more and more of that as time goes on. That big, long Azeroth sort of history lore video, that was a pretty decent example of some of the stuff we're going to be doing. And of course, you'll get really cool loot as well. That's it for me. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Let me know where you think the lore is going to go, and I'll see you next time.